Okay, we are now recording. 123D Make is like extremely clean compared to any other way I've ever done any of these like digifab processes. So I've just got a little friend here, and I think we're gonna just go through how you take this into 123D Make, which is a long name to say. I think we can agree. How to bring it over, and then a couple of different ways you can go about getting cut files for it. So Matt mentioned wanting us to be doing these as hollow. Hypothetically, the documentation for 123D Make suggests that that's a thing that it can do on its own. I cannot figure out for the life of me how. So we're just going to take a second to see if we can make this hollow in Maya. So all I've done here so far is I just selected my camera and just changed the clipping plane so that when I zoom in on this guy, we can sort of see the inside of it a bit. I'm also going to go ahead and just put two-sided lighting on. So lighting, two-sided lighting, just so we can see the inside of the thing. And then all we really need is to select it and, that's interesting. Okay. I booleaned these together, the blobs and the form, but it looks like the blobs are gone, but they did not correspondingly cut through the box, mostly. So we're just going to go ahead and kill all of these because they're going to give us some weirdness. What? Okay, sure. Well, I don't like that. That's bizarre. Oh geez. Okay, we're gonna not do any of that. We're gonna leave those faces in there because they're giving us some real strange behavior when we try and get rid of them. But if we grab it in object mode, we should be able to shift right click, do an extrude, and we're just gonna go like negative a small amount, say 0.25. Is that maybe 0.5? Okay. Again, not what I would have hoped for. Interesting. Perhaps should have tested this behavior beforehand. And the other way we can introduce a hollow thing, and this is actually maybe nicer from a thing you might want to use in studio standpoint, is we're just going to make a little box inside our box, and this is going to be the occupiable space of this whatever building thing, so that the inside and the outside don't match perfectly. Because in my experience, profs hate it when the inside and the outside match perfectly. Particularly Josh, who will be very grumpy if given a project that matches perfectly on the inside and the outside. So we just got a little thing inside our first thing, and we're just going to go ahead and do a mesh combine on them, which interesting. Well, we'll see how this goes. This might get a little weird, which may be valuable. Mesh combine just tells Maya to think of it as one thing, even if the faces aren't necessarily touching. So having done that, to get it into 123D Make, we need a .obj or a .stl. I don't believe Maya can do a STL, but it should be able to do. Oh, maybe it can do an STL. Okay. So there's a plugin that lets you do OBJ exporting, I believe. So we'll just hop over to the plugin manager. Look at my notes, that might be helpful. So the plugin manager again is Windows Settings and Preferences plugin manager, and I think that one of these is OBJs, but I might be wrong. Yeah, OBJ export right here. So we'll just turn that on. Load it and auto-load it, and close out. And now if we go ahead and go File, Export, one of these options should be a nice old-fashioned OBJ, which is what we're going to want for what we're doing. Is that plugin already loaded into Maya, or you have to download it? No, it's in the default list, but you have to tell Maya to load it. So let's export everything. Anyone have any questions about getting geometry out of Maya as an OBJ? We're all on the same page for that. So 123D make. Is that a really unfortunate resolution? But that's it. We'll live with it. So we can go. So if we import, it'll take a STL or an OBJ, and we should have a OBJ right here. We'll see if it. Interesting. So this is definitely one of those things where it thinks about up differently from Maya, which is not necessarily a problem. There may be a way to alter that in here. I've not tried, but it also does not necessarily matter for our purposes. Camera in 123D make is middle click is pan, right click is tumble, and left click is whatever, selecting objects. Zoom with the scroll wheel. So fairly straight across there. All this software does, like its sole functionality is letting you like make things using a laser cutter, or I guess in one case a mill. This has got some milling stuff in there. So we can basically just work down this bar on the side to get through the various different ways of making this thing a thing. Is this? Yeah, no? Oh, darn. That's disappointing. I really want to flip it because it sort of annoys me. It doesn't matter. It's just hard to look at, I think. Anyways, so we can, if we click the little gear here, this will take us into, where is it? Okay. Oh, I'm definitely wrong about what that gear does. Press this one. This is the one I was thinking. The little edit thing. This is a list of all the types of material we've told. It comes, all the ones but unnamed underscore 0 are ones that it comes with, so like paper sizes and stuff. You can set them up to be whatever you like. So if we want, we can make one that's, whatever, 16 inches by 24 inches by point something of an inch. I don't really remember. But like if you've got your card is a particular size, or your PETG is a particular size, you can just set up a piece of one of these entries that is a third of a sheet of PETG or a quarter of a sheet of card or whatever, and then you can just go back to that knowing that that'll be the right size of material. Thickness is important if you're going to do any sort of egg crating type thing like we were looking at, or stacking like a contour type thing. Aside from that, the length and width will determine how it tries to lay it out, because 123D make will lay out your cut file for you and nest your cut file for you if you want, because it's amazing. You can also scale your object, manipulate your object, got your units, etc. Sort of the usual, like what you would imagine to be the outcomes from these are the outcomes from these, I think it is safe to say. And then the fun part is a construction technique. So if we click this, we're given a little list of different ways that this software can think about turning this into a 3D thing. And I think we'll just work through most of these because they're fairly straightforward, but they're also intensely cool. So, so stacked slices is contouring, like we were talking about earlier. And we can see over here we've got all of our sheets that it's put together for us. And then we can control some of the behaviors of it. So we can, tell it if we want to place dowels into the cut file of a particular diameter and a particular profile, so they can be round or square or whatever, which means that hypothetically it will have, in my understanding, have placed, oh yeah, you can see them. I think that's them. Little places for you to pass like a rod through the stack to keep everything registered, which keeping a contour cut model registered is like the biggest battle of making a contour cut model. They don't have any questions about any of this so far? All pretty straight across. The thickness of the stacks is given by the material you've set up. So if it's like, oh, this is too chunky, we need something finer, you fix that by giving it a different material to think about. You can manipulate how it is deciding to slice this thing. including some really weird, like, you know, whatever. It could be like, that's kind of neat, or that kind of thing, if you are inclined. There's this modify form function, which I don't really see the use in contour cut like this. It comes up more in egg crates and stuff, that allows you to start selecting these objects and do, like, moving them around or whatever. Also, like, it gives you assembly steps, which I think is kind of hilarious for a contour cut, because, like, you know, pile up the pieces and have a thing. The one thing that I should probably maybe talk about it will flag things it sees as potential problems in a sort of procedural way that is not necessarily especially clever. But you've got, like, this little thing here. It's identifying as, I'm guessing what its problem with. I'm going to check. Unconnected pieces, yeah. So it's just saying that this little guy is going to give you a bad time because no dowel is passing through it. So if something's a funny color in here, you can come over to your Model Issues tab, and it will tell you why it's not happy with that piece. And it's often, I mean, I haven't done a ton of fabrication using 123D Make, because the last time I used it, it was rather crude. But from what they seem to be when it flags issues, they're probably things you can just kind of, like, not look too close at and maybe a little hot glue and not worry about. But it's probably good to know going in that, like, this might be a bad time, or that if your entire model is flagged as an issue, potentially reevaluate your approach. And then we can determine how so it will nest for you, which with an object like this is not particularly interesting, but with some of these things can get, like, would have saved me a lot of money at some points in my life. And then we can, let's look at some of these other approaches. So this is yep. Yeah, that checks out. I'm going to load up one of their example files. I guess one of the things to note is when you're exporting, you want to either rotate your object 90 degrees so that the Z and Y are flipped, or let's do a Rhino. Or there may be a checkbox in what you're exporting from that lets you change that. So yeah, some of these other techniques we can build this thing with. So interlocking slices is a 2-axis egg crate. It doesn't seem to possess the capacity to do a 3rd axis, which sort of makes sense because that adds a ton of computational complexity to the task. So we can divide this either by the number we want on each axis or by a distance. This little button here will, if we go to a modify form, which lets us grab one of these guys, we can grab this, say, and, like, scoot it. Come on. I'm unclear why it's fighting me on it, but oh wait, there we go. So you can be like, oh, I'd rather this one is maybe down a little for whatever reason, and then if you strange, the documentation may have lied to me. It suggests that clicking this button will evenly distribute everything again. That doesn't seem to be the case. So you can do it either by the number in each axis or by the distance. This relief type thing is only really a concern if you're doing milling. For the laser, you don't need to worry about it. It's just if you have a round tool and you just kind of, like, the insides of the notches get filleted, the relief works that out such that they still fit together properly, as opposed to getting, like, a weird little round things clipping together and not that you're sitting with a file at 4 in the morning trying to make them fit together properly. But that's only really a concern if you get on the mill. Again, we can affect the direction of both of these, although, yeah, so we can affect, and then this is the other one, it's the orange, and it does not force you to keep them Or maybe it does force you to keep them. Yeah, it does force you to keep them at 90 from each other. But you can set them up to be pretty weird if you want, which can be really nice if you're looking to sort of like express a behavior or something with it. Or, you know, your actual structural grid is skewed, and so you want to mimic your actual structural grid in your model. Again, we have this feature, which I think is just awesome. Although it is really nice in that it will, because these all get labeled, right, which is pretty cool, automatically, because I've never once in my life successfully labeled something in Rhino. Consistently, the labels disappear before I print. We can nest them. Which doesn't seem to change all that much on this form. I'm going to switch to a different example. Let's do a skull. You can save out these files as you're working on them as a .3dmk, which will just save this with the slices and all that. Probably not a bad plan to do if you've set up like a cut file really meticulously. Just grab one of those, spend a few seconds saving that, and then later if you need to cut it again or you want to change the way you're cutting it, you're not back at square zero. So this is actually totally awesome, this curve one. So we've got like an axis with some number on it, and then this curve thing with some number on it. And the curve is set somewhere. Slice direction. So you can see how we've got this yellow curve here with some control points on it. If you manipulate the curve, the slicing contour will follow the... Okay, hello. That got a little exciting. Will follow the curve, which, like, for a skull, whatever, but if you're doing something like that BMW pavilion we looked at earlier, this exact procedure would be like a great way to build a model of that was sort of true to your actual structural assembly. Again, we can scrub around the things. It's got some problems with like most of these parts right now, which it's like there's too many notches, looks like a hot mess, etc. Radial slices is similar but simpler in a way, in that it's just going to give you a radial distribution of parts. So the sort of thing that is a huge pain in Rhino. So I believe you can set where the center of this thing occurs. Yeah. Which is also, I think, a very classic technique. And then all the same stuff for your plans and, you know, clicking through an awesome little animation. The one that it doesn't have an animation for, which is too bad because I think it'd be awesome, is this approach, which is the so-called fold-it panels. So that sort of laser cut and card and fold up kind of approach. You'll notice what it's doing that is really cool in my mind is it is taking a mesh of some complexity and abstracting that down for us. So you're not left like in Rhino going through trying to figure out how to make your whatever your object dumb enough that it's not completely insane to try and fold this thing up. You can just be like, how patient am I feeling? Not very? Let's be a little more patient. And it will just give you a new thing for however patient you're feeling. The red ones are ones that it's identified problems with. Joinery doesn't fit seems to be like a super common problem that it likes to flag, which I believe is has to do with how these things get tabbed. So changing your tab style may fix that problem, which we'll get to in just a second, because you can also just kind of be like, I don't want these seams, go away seams. And just by selecting your add or remove seams tool, you can come in and start being like, this should be a seam. And now that will be reflected in your cut file, which can be really nice if, for instance, this place that it's decided to stick a seam is like, it's really important that this not get a seam because this is critical to the thing, or if you want some symmetry in your seams or what have you, or just like, oh, this doesn't fit nicely on a cut sheet, let's add some seams. Although it will try and fit the size of the pieces to the cut sheet you give it. So it's like if we were to switch this to this thing? I have no idea if this is the one I think it is or not. It should endeavor to restrict itself to the, so it's like if you're cutting on 8.5 by 11, it will give you smaller pieces. You've got different joint types, which can be pretty nice. Like Matt was talking about, so you've got a whole big list of them. The help file for this software goes into some detail about how you use them all. From what I've looked at, it seems like tab is probably, or tab, no, not tab, what's it called? Ticked is probably the one that you're most likely to want, which just offsets all the way around and puts little slices in the offset for you, as like a fairly like stable, chill way to do it. And then you can just have your Olfa knife when you're folding it up and just kind of clip it away if it starts getting in the way. But it will do all sorts of actually pretty crazy things. Like tongue's pretty cool, where you can see I've got little slots and little tongues, and they like pass together. So that's just a matter of like selecting what you think's cool, what you think you can get away with, how patient you're feeling when you build the thing. It by default gives you can set them up to be perforated, or it'll just give you the fold lines as a different color. And then in a minute here I'll talk about how you can bring in the Illustrator and just mass change that to be like black, and then cut throughs are red, or what have you. Because yeah, definitely at least etch your fold lines if you're going to do this. Yes, you can perforate, and it will just we'll just change the cut file to perforate. Okay, those are a bit of a thing. Hypothetically, they're driven by the material thickness, which this material I've given it might have a crazy thickness. Interesting. That is okay. Those are perforations, I guess. You can also, if you just make it a by default, it'll be a line. If we look at the cut sheets here, you can see it's just this line, and then you can just set that to be a thing that cuts when you get down to laser cutter. Which I think we're basically at doing that exact thing, and see how we can export this, and we'll take it over into. I think it's really huge. Yeah, that's what we want. I just don't want a bunch of little pages. How's it? Right, it's get plans. So click get plans, this little page thing, and then down at the bottom, it will give you your export options. You've got EPS, PDF, DFX. EPS and PDF will both work for Illustrator. I don't think Illustrator will eat a DXF. I'd probably just use an EPS because an EPS is like a non-proprietary AI, as far as I know. You can also print it, which I guess would be really nice if this is on the machine that is your laser cutter or whatever. That'd be pretty cool. For our purposes, though, we're going to export it, and we'll just go. I'll just overwrite this one. For some reason, default association for EPS seems to want to be Photoshop, at least for me, but we're just going to go ahead and open with Illustrator, which is fine. And it comes in looking like this, which is, we'll need to do a little cleanup to get into an AI that we can take downstairs and put on the laser cutter. Does anyone have any questions about the 123D make stuff we were just talking about? Any further questions about it? Is everyone good with that? Cool. I don't actually know. I've always just been grateful that it labeled the assembly for me, as opposed to my previous procedure of being terrible. Yeah, I'm not sure. It may be. There may well be. If there is, I don't, off the top of my head, know it though, I'm afraid. By default, it'll do numbers or numbers and letters if it's multi-axial.
So for this, since you got it all embedded in
Yep. I mean, it's probably the responsible thing to do, to go through all your model issues, and I'm guessing I'm guessing in every case here it's going to be joinery doesn't fit, which, as far as I can tell, means that there's something wonky with the tab system you've chosen, where like a tab's clipping into the thing or something. If it's like this isn't planar, probably want to fix it. But if it's joinery doesn't fit, yeah, so it's like, nice if we could get that not tiny. It looks like, yeah, so in this tiny little thing that I can barely see, maybe you guys can see better on the thing, there's this little red teeth here that's just saying that it wants to put tabs there, and it can't put tabs there because it's too small a corner. Which, like, that kind of thing, I would just roll right on through. If it's like this thing isn't going to work ever, you know, not planar, don't probably start fiddling with things. But something like that is probably not a big deal. Just a thing to sort of be on the lookout for when you get to actually building it. So this tool here, I don't know how hardcore into Illustrator you guys are, but your artboard tool, always nice to drag that to whatever the size of your material is. Coming in, and I'm also just gonna go ahead and delete the little oh geez, right. So 123D Make seems to like to group everything on the way in. So Control Shift G, I believe, is ungroup. If I'm remembering correctly. Yep. So I'm just gonna delete that frame that it defined on the edge, because mostly with that, if you leave that in, all you get on the laser is a nice little line on the ruler at the top, where the registration's a little out, and I just kind of decided to hack up the machine a bit, which is not, you know, necessarily the goal. So we're just gonna ungroup absolutely everything. So what we want is to be able to grab individual little parts. Yeah, that's fine. So Illustrator has a select. Wow. I don't know if you guys have found this yet, but switching between different software that uses different ways of manipulating the camera is actually the worst experience. So Illustrator has a select similar function, or same. And if we go select same appearance, it'll grab every line in this thing that is currently blue. We're gonna do that in a. Let's group them. So Control G is group, and now all the blue lines in the file are one thing. So we can use that to sort of batch edit them in a second here. So we're gonna grab this number, all this red stuff. We'll go select same appearance. Now I've got everything red. We'll group those as well. And then we're going to do the same thing with our little black score lines here. So we'll go select, same appearance, Control G. Now we've got three groups that are the three different types of lines we're dealing with. We're fine with, the black lines can stay black. That's totally cool, because black is a score, not a through cut. The red lines should become black as well, because we don't want to cut the 8 out and score everything else. We would like the 8 to get scored and cut everything else. So we've got them all selected in this group. You may find, let's see if it does it. Yeah. We're actually in RGB color space here, but for whatever reason it likes to show CMYK. Oh, actually it's this reason, isn't it? That you. Yeah. Swap that over to RGB. So when you color, you'll color pop out here. Set it to whatever. If you don't do that, you'll get your CMYK. If you shift right click on your stroke, you'll get your CMYK values here. That's fine. You can, if your document is in RGB color space, so document color mode, if it's RGB, you still have RGB colors. It's just asking for them as CMYK colors. The solution to that, if you don't want to change it for whatever reason, double click on your color. You can still set it properly in here. But if we do this, we switch it over. It's RGB. That's fine. So we'll grab all of these, and we're just going to go ahead and shift right click on our stroke, set those to black. We're also going to make sure, while we're doing things, we're going to make sure that these are actually, okay, yeah, so they're gray right now, right? And that will give us a real bad time. So we're going to shift right click, pop that over to black. Everything that needs to be black is black. That's fine. Our blue, and you can tell the printer any RGB value you want. You can tell it to do whatever you want with that, the cutter, the laser cutter. But for convenience's sake, it's typically easiest just to make it red in Illustrator. and use the default cutting color on the printer. And then the last thing that we have to do is just we'll grab everything and want a stroke of 0.18, being the preferred stroke for getting the laser to determine that this is something it cuts through as opposed to something it mills, like rasters out. And that is a valid cut file. Obviously too big for our printers here, but that's fine. You just make sure your material in 123D Make is the material you're actually going to use, and it will give you layouts to the right size, and then you just drag artboards around each one. To save it, you just do a save as. Oh, I think they got Creative Cloud downstairs now, don't they? It used to be you had to save it down to CS6, but almost certainly CC now. Save the thing, throw it on a flash drive, go use the laser, clean everything both times, before and after, or I'll be sad. That is 123D Make, pretty much. Anyone have any other questions?
I think if you cut file for like the interlocking function or whatever, it shows in 123D Make that the interlocks are like rectangular pieces.
Mhm.
Like open and close it, it's like a so like towards the middle and everyone gets between now.
Interesting. In 123D Make, if you're over in, where are we? Oh my god, my vision is, this screen is way too high resolution. What kind of relief type do you have?
Square.
Strange. I would expect that to not give you that problem. That's very odd. I mean, I would suggest probably trying other relief types and seeing if that addresses it. Dog bone is, again, for milling, it will add a little nub in the corner to the size of your tool, so the tool will kind of actually make the corner correctly. Doing that may fix it in Illustrator just because it adds a lot of complexity to the curve. It's strange though.
I was wondering if you could go over the mesh form shrink wrap function. Sometimes when you bring in your model from Maya, it's asking you
Oh, if you want shrunk
if you
wrap?
want to shrink wrap or not, and if you don't, it won't use certain construction techniques.
Yeah, so shrink wrapping is just a way of like simplifying your geometry basically. Whoa. So I don't know how you provoke that behavior. Do you know
I'm assuming it's just you have
if it just triggers
you have a
procedurally?
mesh that's not completely, it's very
Yeah, it gives
heavy or something.
there's a nice little diagram of it in here actually. It has like pretty okay help documentation for Autodesk software, which is cool. Usually Autodesk is not terrible. Shrink wrap 32. Do I go to a page? Dear God. So yeah, it's this idea here, right, where the small one is the original, and then this is the version at shrunk wrap. So it just kind of like blobs everything out a bit and simples it up, so that these teeth are something you could actually hope to deal with. If it's asking for it, I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
If it ruins your object asking for it, like, maybe find a different approach, but
Can you shrink wrap that at last?
don't know. Let's see. Can you manually trigger it?
If you go to modify form in
Oh, okay.
and at the bottom you just click that.
Interesting. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you.
And then click
Yeah. So, and there's the. Okay, that makes so much sense. This tiny little bar at the bottom is a thing I consistently did not notice while preparing for this. So that would also be, then this is the hollow function, which saves you if you are inclined to not model in an interiority. This will give you an interiority. Maybe eventually. All right, yeah. So actually, that will save you a ton of time using that hollow function. Which every time I say it sounds like HOLO to me, not hollow as in a void space. Yeah.
Can you just walk through how you do that?
Sure. I'm gonna load up a new. I think rocket ship. I think these are really fun. These example shapes they give you. So yeah, we'll do interlocking slices. Incidentally, this is a perfect opportunity to fix the direction on this. That actually does it perfectly. So we've got our thing. I've selected a build type. Go modify form. And we've got a few. We've got hollow, which will produce some sort of cavity inside the thing. So I believe the big one is the maximum cavity we'll consider, and then the sort of the small dark shape in the middle is how much it's actually going to core out for you. Then you just hit apply, and eventually, in a minute, it will have produced a void in your thing. Which probably definitely use that approach to get that interiority that Matt was talking about. Be much quicker than most other approaches. And then I believe, yeah, same thing for thickening it or shrink wrapping it. It seems like shrink wrap does not necessarily like letting you see ahead of time how aggressively it's gonna alter the thing. So those are those guys. Does anyone else have questions pertaining to this, or what to do once you've cut them? Cool. Oh. Yeah. The 123D make numbering system is a godsend. Is amazing. And actually, and I know I was kind of joking about it, but this thing can be very nice if you've got something kind of complicated with like lots of little parts that look similar, because it will tell you this is like Y4, Z1. It like tells you the name of the part it wants you to stick in, which can be nice. Be careful if you're going to use acrylic, which like, if you're going to use acrylic, absolutely make sure it's cut through if your geometry is at all delicate. You will never in a million years successfully crack any sort of fine object out of a sheet of acrylic without just destroying it first. If you're doing a fold-up, I mean, this tabs for you. Most of the fold-ups I've done have been from Rhino, which doesn't tab for you. Has led to a lot of really gross hot glue seams. But yeah, the biggest hurdles are keeping track of what's what, and that's one of the things that this actually does really well. Is it tells you, it names all your parts for you and will tell you what your part is, right? There's no like, is this one or this one? Is this one go here or here? It's like this one. So I think using this software, it's relatively foolproof as far as these things go. I don't know if anyone has any other questions, or if we can all.
So as far as you know, there's no way they can affect size here for the other one. It's pretty big, right?
They are pretty big, and I feel like there is. I feel like I've done it. I think it comes in as line work, but let's find out. Yeah, line work. Oh my god, how's it spelled? E-L or L-E? Thank you. Never like a room full of people watching you type to just ruin my ability to spell. It may not be, which would be sad. Yeah, it doesn't look. If it is, it's not documented. That's one of those things where if you're like painting it or something after, that's gone. There's no way you're gonna see the little etch marks, or if you're like puttying it or something, also not a problem. If you are going to putty anything, be really super careful about any water-based putty and like cardboard. I've had some models start really beautiful and get really super gross putting like drywall spackle on them and watching them just kind of like swell up from the moisture. I would totally encourage you guys to go in with hand tools after and Bondo your seams or spray foam the inside and then Bondo that surface or whatever. Can be very like really super cool. Whereas the like, it's an egg crate, congratulations, you egg crate it. But if you then take that egg crate as a jumping off point for another process, it can be like very hot. Anyone else? I'm gonna kill the recording and go get lunch.